next to me, and it's kind of.
Yeah, and we did not forget that you were there.
You were
That's
good
the problem with Zoom, isn't it? You
I
forget.
was good about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't miss. You didn't
No.
forget me out there.
We didn't miss you till you were gone.
Yeah, and I
Like,
hung for an hour.
Did Chris leave? I think Chris left.
Yeah, I left about 8 o'clock.
Oh shit! I got the paper at the Mullen in my car.
Yeah, just get it. You have to.
Peter.
I already did.
You just send it to town clerk.
Oh, no
I already
problem.
did it. They signed it.
Oh.
I got to give it to David. I think.
I can help.
Probably prevented me from saying one stupid thing.
We don't have no plans.
We should have plans for something.
We should have plans for at least 2 of them.
11 by 17.
Yes. We'll see.
Maybe we'll get some from the applicants.
Okay, let's get started. Good evening.
I hate when we don't have plans.
This is
Plan.
July 9th, and we will kick off the Conservation Commission meeting for Tuesday, July 9th. This meeting is both in person and on the Zoom call. In the case of the Zoom not working, we'll continue the meeting here in person. And it's being broadcast and recorded by Chelmsford Telemedia and will be available on their website and YouTube. So we're following the posted agenda, so we'll get going here. A couple of things to start. Just a heads up, we will not have a conservation meeting in 2 weeks on July 23rd. That's our normal cycle, so we are not going to take a meeting on that night, and our next meeting will be August something.
13th.
13th, thank you, David. So our next meeting will be August 13th. Okay, so our first thing is we need to do a reorganization if we want to reorganize on the commission the way we're set up. So I'm open to ideas. I'm willing to continue, but I'm
Carl?
open to ideas.
I make a, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to
Nominate.
What?
Read.
nominate Carl as chair.
I second that.
I'll accept it. Any discussion?
You've done a great job.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Vote, okay.
Unanimous.
I make a nomination of Mr. Chris Garahan to be our vice chair.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Vice chair / clerk, I think, is the
Yes.
official title. Also, the other thing is Peter has been representing us on the Master Plan Implementation Committee. I'm happy to have Peter continue if he's willing to, unless somebody else wants it. Okay.
I will say what has been fascinating is it's brought me deep into the 4 or 5 plans the town has done besides the master plan that have conservation values as action items. So that's been helpful to me in understanding where the town's at.
Good.
There's been 4 or 5 different master plans.
No,
No,
we're going to talk about this down the road in another meeting, but
Okay.
there's at least 4 different planning documents that have actually assignments to the Conservation Commission or have conservation values that we are charged with keeping an
Okay.
eye on.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. They're all good. You've heard them all, invasives and watersheds, and I mean, it's not anything new. It's just, I'd like to put them on a list so we can just.
I move that we appoint Peter as our official representative to the Master Plan Committee.
Motion from
Second.
Chris, second from Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I want to echo, Peter's done a good job representing us there, and there's a lot going on there, and I appreciate the work.
Yeah, and I don't know if that was time for discussion, but the big thing that happened at the last master plan meeting a little while ago is I gave a update on behalf of the commission on the question of invasives. And one thing led to another, and there's more we can talk about, but I ended up writing out what is basically a short version of the town invasives management plan, which had not been written down. And that is a recommendation in several of these plans. And Paul Cohen was involved, and I'll tell you more about it later, but there's some good things going on.
And the other thing is, I've been on the CPC committee, the Community Preservation Committee, and I'm happy to continue that. It's light lifting. It's a couple times a year, so unless somebody else wants it, I'm willing to give it up, but I don't mind it. All right, I'll keep doing it. Report, we do have a representative from the planning board here, liaison. Hello, Joel. You
Hello,
look
Joel
comfortable.
Luna, associate member of the planning board. I'm substituting in for Chris tonight, who I believe is in Italy, which I can't imagine somebody wanting to go to Italy instead of coming here, but
Yeah.
that's the choice he made. Last week, we had Hildreth before us, as well as 150 North Road, which is a Gardner what they're planning to be an educational institution up there, and a couple of other things. This week, we'll have Hildreth again, and then a few of the same things from before. And the main thing on the Hildreth is last meeting is we took a poll on basically what our thoughts were about only having the roadway within the development having one sidewalk instead of two. And we considered this, it was presented as that there was some interest in being able to remove the project out of the jurisdiction of the commission, but the board really didn't factor that into their decision. They were really more just looking at it from the strict question of, did we want one or two sidewalks? And so the straw poll indicated that there was a willingness for just one sidewalk. And so next, but we also identified in this meeting a number of questions that we had, a number of issues of things that we wanted to be able to get more information on. There was a list that the chair gave that was just off the top of her head. But in any case, I imagine we'll be pursuing a number of those things going forward. So that's it. Any questions on planning board otherwise?
Were you in favor of waiving the curbing and the street width?
The curbing question did not come up. The board, in the case of Hildreth and in a number of other developments, has always indicated an interest in having curbing, having granite curbing for the purpose of ensuring proper stormwater.
Any other?
Is the fire department on board with this?
The fire department has commented. I don't know if they have commented on the most recent plan, because the plan has been shifting, as you know.
Sure.
And so we would certainly look to get indication of what their comment is as well, particularly if there is a T turnaround versus a cul-de-sac circle.
Thank you, Joe.
Anything else, clarification, just for the planning board?
Yeah, where are you guys on the aquifer protection permit for this project?
One of the things that we were interested in were the results of the phase one. That doesn't so much have to do with the aquifer protection as it does with our concern of the layouts as far as where houses and yards going versus where potential contamination might be. As far as aquifer goes, there's the geohydro study. We're also interested in seeing the results of that for the purpose of very similar to 93 Brickhill and also 270, and that is, is there a question of infiltration and potentially exacerbating a possible contamination issue there? And so that is something that we would want to look at, which we did indicate. But that's the extent of it so far.
So you're still a little ways away.
We're still a little ways away, I would say, in that
Thank you.
perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. So we'll start the regulatory hearing, and I am going to recuse, and I'm going to let Mr. Garahan take the first hearing.
Very good. First, we'll do the legal notice. Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187, the Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here in Room 204 of the Chelmsford Town Offices on Tuesday, July 9, 2024, at 7 p.m. to consider the notice of intent filed by Mihir Patel on behalf of property owners Edward and Eileen Duffy for proposed work within a 100-foot buffer zone to intermittent stream bank at Lock Road, further identified as Assessors Map 38/Block 157/Lot 8. The project entails construction of a single-family dwelling with deck, associated driveway, installation of utilities, grading, and landscaping. So that's our legal notice. And then for those of you not familiar with how Conservation conducts its business, what we do now is we have a presentation from the applicant's representative, kind of giving us an overview of what they're proposing. And then we'll have the commissioners will then have a chance to ask questions, and then we'll turn it, since it's a public hearing, we'll then turn to the public and see if the public has questions for the applicant or the commission as well too. And we'll just proceed with, kind of due process. So over to the applicant at this point.
Hi, good evening. Maureen Harold from Norse Environmental Services. Mr. Patel is here with me tonight as well. So as you just mentioned, we filed a notice of intent for the construction of a single-family dwelling. This is a buffer zone project. The plans that I handed out to you, just real quickly, I color-coded them to make your life easier, hopefully. So the intermittent stream bank is colored in a green. The 25-foot no disturbed is in a purple. The orange is the erosion control lines. 50-foot no build is in a light yellow, and the 100-foot buffer is in a brighter yellow. This plan has been slightly modified. So David was nice enough to meet us out there July 4th week, and he had offered a few ideas, which was not part of the original submittal. These ideas, he suggested incorporating rooftop infiltration. That is now shown on the plan. We're proposing roof recharge. In addition to that, he suggested providing driveway infiltration. So we are proposing a 1 foot wide, 1 foot deep infiltration trench for the driveway. The, I guess the L leg of the driveway, as you could say, we shifted that further away from the BVW itself. It's located outside of the 50-foot no build, and we also reduced the width of that L leg. So it was originally came in at 20 feet wide. We reduced that to 10 feet wide. In addition, it was suggested we provide some sort of permanent demarcation. So we are proposing 10 4x4 wooded pressure treated posts along the 25-foot no disturb, and those are shown as triangles with circles around them. We did receive a DEP file number with no comments, and I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Harrell. Let's see what the commission has, and actually, maybe we'll start first with our agent. David, any preliminary comments as our agent?
They've done everything that I proposed they do. On the posts, ideally, it would be good to have labels on them saying no mowing beyond this point, or
Sure.
something like that.
We can do that.
So really, the intent of the posts that are shown, the 4 foot high, 4 inch wide posts is a visual and physical barrier to let the 25 foot no disturb be restored naturally, which I thought was appropriate, given that, and now even though it's been mowed all the way up to the edge of the stream, I guess for decades, now that it's a change in use, I think it's perfectly appropriate now to respect to the bylaw, the 20 foot no disturb setback from the wetlands, which extends all the way up to the pond in back. So that looks good. We had talked a little bit about maybe also planting some trees along that boundary. Is that something you'd be amenable to?
We did. If the commission
wants-
finds that appropriate, that's something we can incorporate. You know, maybe between the post or wherever you find appropriate.
So that's really all I have to say.
Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Let's go to the commission now. We'll start maybe left to right. Mr. Swenson?
It's been mowed right up to the edge of the stream.
Yeah.
What did we do out on the other house that was built out back?
In back of this one,
Yes,
the same thing.
Same thing?
That commission required that be permanently marked and left undisturbed. You know,
Okay.
to come back.
no, I'm good with this.
Thanks, John.
Yep.
Good. Okay, Bill?
Yeah, I like the plan. I think, I like all the, used all the suggestions David had. The stream's really defined out there,
Right.
Yeah.
so, well, I think it's a great plan. I have no issues.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Mark?
The only question I have is that impervious driveway gonna be able to hold back the water in a heavy rain until the grass takes?
So we do have the 1 foot wide, 1 foot deep trench, so that will certainly help facilitate infiltration for the driveway and the impervious area we're
You're
proposing.
comfortable that'll,
It'll do more than just, let's say, lawn up to the driveway itself.
right,
I
okay.
mean, it's a pretty mild grade.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, actually, it goes up a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's
But-
fairly flat out there.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so,
But we can certainly have the driveway slightly tilted towards the infiltration trench so the stormwater does
No,
go
no, no,
that way.
I'm just questioning if it's gonna carry enough, hold enough water in here. And I definitely encourage planting trees,
Okay,
okay?
sure.
I'm good.
Thanks, Mark. Peter?
I think everything's been covered. I wanted to support the trees.
Okay,
And the reason, other than it's good for the habitat, which is what we're in part focused on, if you look at the aerial photos, a couple of big trees along the stream appear to have disappeared over time.
oh, really? Okay,
And that actually is not, I guess, allowed technically under our bylaw without some concurrence from this commission. So it seems logical to me to ask the owner, is it? Or is there? Hi. Plant some trees.
okay.
Maybe some that, David, you've got the expertise to
well,
think about what kind of trees or.
Sure, I think native certainly would be good, but can you give them some kind of direction in terms of number?
Well, that's a great question. I did a quick look, and pardon me, I'm not an expert on this. I did a quick look at some of the aerial photos on the town website going back 10, 20 years, and it looked like there was like 3 big trees.
Sure.
The other thing I'd like to mention, though, I don't think we have any legal authority to do what I'm about to say, but, our bylaw says 100 feet from the stream is considered good habitat, unless there's some reason to think it's not. And lawns are not good habitat, for a whole bunch of reasons. If you'd like, we could talk offline. So I would just encourage, rather than require, because I don't think we are requiring, any sort of native planting along the 50 feet from the stream. So you've got a 25-foot buffer against the stream, which is kind of a hard, fast rule. But if there's anything you're comfortable doing, like the trees and some native shrubs, and maybe don't put lawn everywhere, if that fits the way you want to run your property, that would be very good for kind of making up for losing a little bit of habitat here. So Google will help you figure that out, and Maureen knows this very well.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thanks, Peter. This is a public hearing. If anybody from the public has any questions for the applicant or comments, just come on up to the podium. Just give us your name and address, and we'd be glad to hear your input. All right, I don't see anybody heading to the podium, so that's okay. Any commissioners, agent, any last questions before we close the hearing?
Just want to clarify, how many trees, Chris?
Well, what I'm hearing now is a couple conditions. We're gonna have some labels on the post as suggested by David, and I'm hearing Peter suggested 3.
3 trees?
Which
Within,
sounds-
between the 4x4s and the,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that would make sense.
sounds like everybody's in agreement on
Yeah,
that, so I think we
yeah.
make that as a condition, yeah.
Make a motion?
Yeah, let's have a
Hearing?
motion first to close the hearing. Yeah, motion by Mark to close the hearing,
second?
seconded by Bill. All those in favor of
Aye.
closing the hearing, aye. Unanimous, so we close the hearing, and now we're going to entertain a motion for action on this proposal. So we're looking at an order of conditions, and we're talking about some conditions of labels on the post, as we discussed, having some native trees, specifically 3 native trees, and near the posts. And I think anything else, David? you see?
No, I think it's pretty well standard.
Do you want the
Outside.
50-foot buffer plantings?
Well, I would say that that's not an official condition, but we would just kind of leave that as a suggestion by our commissioner. It's a good suggestion, and I think I'd encourage you to follow up with your engineer and wetland scientist on that.
I think certainly back around the pond, I think would make a lot of sense. And native shrubs, native trees can be planted without approval of the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
That's an exemption.
And you
Yeah.
can also buy them cheaply if you hunt around.
In the fall, they go on sale, if you can
There you
find
go.
them.
I move, Chris.
So moved by Bill, seconded by Mark on the second. Any discussion before we vote? No discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. So thank you, Ms. Harold.
Thank you
Sir.
for your time.
Thank you very much.
So I'll let you know when it's ready.
All right, back to the chair.
Thanks. How'd that feel back in the saddle?
know, it's been a while.
Got big shoes to fill now.
He showed me how it's done.
Who's that aimed at?
Whoever wants to.
All right. All right, so let's go to the next meeting agenda. Thank you, Chris. Next meeting agenda item is 28 6th Lane. This is a notice of intent. James Blau, Richard Kirby, LEC Environmental and Consultants representing the applicant. This is a new NOI, so if we can get a reading of the notice. Chris?
The legal notice is right in front of us here pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Chelmsford Wetlands Bylaw, Chapter 187. The Chelmsford Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing here in room 204 at the town offices on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, to consider the notice of intent filed by property owner James Blau for proposed work within 100-foot buffer zone to Hart Pond at 28 6th Lane, further identified as Assessors Map 123/Block 471/Lot 6. The project entails demolition of an existing single-family dwelling, followed by a reconstruction of the dwelling with deck and stairs, grading, and landscaping. Also, replacement of an existing seasonal floating dock on Hart Pond. Chair.
Thank you, Chris, and hello to the applicant. Can you give your name and tell us your story?
Yep, hi, I'm Nicole Ferrara from LEC Environmental. Also on Zoom is Richard Kirby from LEC and the project engineer, Brendan Pyburn. And then in the audience, we have the applicants, Jim and Donna Blau, and our general contractor, Brian Reedy.
Did you bring plans, Nicole?
Yeah, we dropped off about eight
Oh,
8 copies.
I was not aware of that. I can go down and get them if the commission
I
wants
do
hard
have
copies.
2 copies in front of me. They're 11 by 17s.
Why don't we share those, and can you put it up on the screen?
Sure.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I think we can probably share.
I have the, sorry, Rich Kirby from LEC. I have the revised plan electronically. I can share my screen if that helps.
Actually, Rich, I think the screen here is a little larger and easier
Oh,
to see.
okay, sure, yeah, so long as you have a PDF of the most recent plan that Nicole
Yes.
submitted.
Yes.
Okay, great.
That probably drain into the pond.
First pond.
All right, so we had the pleasure of meeting David out last Tuesday to go over the site conditions. We did make some minor plan modifications, just some clarification on some of the line work and distances from the existing and proposed house to the bank.
Excuse me, can you move the microphone a little closer?
Yep.
Thank
Can you hear me now?
I think so.
So in terms of existing conditions, the property is in the southwestern part of town, and it's just north of Hart Pond. You see we have the bank boundary along the southern edge here, and the property contains an existing single-family house. It has a driveway extending to the front of the house. There are 3 sheds located along the western portion of the property, and the remaining portion north of the house is forested uplands, and that's depicted by the scalloped edge along there. There is also a wooden dock that extends from the bank into Hart Pond, and it's a wooden dock that we are proposing to replace. LEC was back delineating the wetlands in April, and you can see the 25, 50, and 100-foot buffer zone outlined in green on the plan. And you can see the majority, if not the entire existing house, is within the 100-foot buffer zone. And lastly, on site we have bordering land subject to flooding. And if you take a look at plan, I guess left, you'll see this wavy green line. And that is the bordering land subject to flooding line. It just shows the zone A boundary, and there's no base flood elevation associated with that. So like I said before, we're gonna raise and rebuild the existing house and also install a new driveway and garage, although the driveway and garage are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. The applicant's also looking to remove all 3 sheds along the side of that property boundary. And as the house currently sits, it's 47 feet away from the pond, and we're proposing the house at 53.6 feet. And that's the closest distance between the deck and the bank of the pond. Also proposed are 2 trees to be removed that currently are a safety hazard. There's a 30-inch pine and a 22-inch oak in the buffer zone, and those will be removed, and the stumps will be ground down. Also, 2 oaks in the buffer zone will be pruned. They are just they're uneven, and an arborist came out to the site to evaluate them and suggested those be pruned. So one of those trees is actually, it already fell over, so that's why one of them is being removed. And then we have the existing dock that's going to be replaced. It's going to be replaced with aluminum compost dock. And it's going to be in the same location, same footprint as the current dock sits. And then, as discussed with David during our site visit, we noticed some vegetation around the dock might need to be trimmed to access it in order to replace the dock, but nothing will need to be removed. It'll just be trim work around the edges. And then in terms of mitigation measures, you can see this this line with the circles around it. It's south of the house. That'll be our erosion control line. It'll be comprised of entrenched silt fence and a 12-inch diameter compost sock to protect the lake or the pond from any construction activities. And then we also are proposing stockpiling in the driveway, and that's outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. And lastly, for mitigation, we're proposing a stormwater management system located between the garage and the house, and that will collect and infiltrate all the roof runoff from the garage and the dwelling via gutters and downspouts. And right now, there is no existing stormwater management on site, so all the water does flow down gradient towards the pond, but this will be an improvement as it will collect and infiltrate all that stormwater that's proposed with the increase in impervious area. And that just about covers it, so I'll turn it back over to the commission with any questions.
Can you point out where the stormwater management, I'm missing it. Oh, up top, yeah,
Search.
I'm sorry.
And that manages runoff from both the roof of the house and the driveway.
And the garage, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, David, thank you very much for your presentation. David, do you want to give us your summary?
Yeah, I think this looks good. The house, there is a bit of an expansion of the footprint of the house, but it's being moved slightly farther away from the lake than the existing house, and there is, as was just pointed out, there's management of stormwater runoff from the roof of the house and the driveway. I think I might as well just say it right now. I think I think it would be a standard order of conditions. With only one special condition, as Nicole alluded to, is that over here where there probably will be a slight amount of trimming that would be necessary to access the new dock. I think just a special condition that requires the contractor to mark that off first and then let me know, go out and take a quick look at it. I think one of the really nice things about this lot is that the shoreline is pretty nicely vegetated, and the owners have indicated they really have no plans to change that. I did indicate that to go within 25 feet would require approval from the Conservation Commission, but it's really nicely vegetated, primarily with native plants. So I think it's good that that's being maintained.
Great,
All I have to say.
thanks for that, okay. Why don't we start with Peter tonight for the commission? Yeah.
Hi, Nicole, good presentation. What kind of roof? What kind of roof on the building?
I am going to turn that over to our general contractor in the audience.
I mean, is it metal or?
Metal seam roof,
Pardon me?
standing metal seam roof.
Metal roof,
Yes, sir.
okay. Secondly, what's the plan for the trees? The lot is fairly wooded, if I have the right property. What is the plans for the trees between the garage and Parkerville Road?
That's outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
Yeah,
That's not shown on this plan. I don't believe there are any plans for tree removal, but I will also default.
I mean, it's not our jurisdiction, but again, this commission is charged with habitat, and I just wanted to point out, this is a vacant lot right now, well, more or less, kind of connecting a wetland across Parkerville to the pond, and so
Let me see.
we probably don't have jurisdiction over the trees, but just
well,
wanted
here-
to acknowledge they're an important.
Here's a photo, and actually, I think the garage would be back here,
Right.
and so I don't think there really are much, if any, trees.
Well, it's a
that need
long
to come
skinny,
down.
it's a long skinny lot, so there's a whole bunch of area between the garage and the road. That's all I'm asking. But I don't think it's our jurisdiction, so let's not spend time on that. Question for David on the shoreline. I just wanted to comment that our town consultant on the other lake that's having weed problems, in their recommendations from a previous study was, hey, don't cut down vegetation on the shoreline because it's important for water quality in the lake. And I'm just curious, under our regs, we're simply saying, please don't, well, the dock trimming you talked about, but beyond that, the rule is you're not supposed to cut in that 25-foot without asking
Right,
us if it's cool.
that's right, right, I
Okay.
made that clear.
Good,
yeah.
I'm good with that, and I'm pretty much done. The trimming of the oak trees, are we concerned that, I mean, if I had a place on the water, I'd want to trim them so I could see. I respect that, but I wouldn't, they're big old oak trees, so they have high habitat value. And do we want to have some discussion about how high up to trim? Because if you just say we're gonna trim the tree, one could trim it all the way to the top. And then you lose because the oak trees are like top of the pyramid for habitat value. So I don't know if the applicant or if we have some concern, but I would be very interested in trying to preserve those trees as much as you can with vista pruning. as we
What
call it.
was the purpose of the trimming of the oak trees again?
Yep, so an arborist came out and the canopy was uneven, so to preserve the integrity and stability of the trees, they recommend just minor trimming of some of the leaning leaders.
So it's really for the health of the trees, it sounds like, that the trimming's being proposed.
Right, but I mean, I've seen a lot of these properties on lake shores, and I'm actually guilty myself. There's a tendency to lose a few more branches over time, and then at the end of the day, you've got a pollution problem in the lake because all the vegetation is gone. So why don't we just move
Yeah.
on, but that would be
Yeah,
my question or
I think the answer
suggestion.
is that the arborist had recommended it, and I think that's a good answer.
That's fair enough.
So, yeah. Okay, thanks, Peter. Chris?
I mean, no, Nicole, I think this is a, well-designed project and plan. I appreciate the time and effort that went into the planning of this, and I think it will, as you said, it will be an improvement. It's gonna be an improvement, and I think it's, from my environmental perspective, it's gonna, I think, be an enhancement and improvement and better protect the water quality of the pond and better protect the wildlife that, that live in the pond. So I think it's a good thing.
Thanks, Chris. Mark?
I think it's fine. I have no problem with it. I think in our rules and regulations, there is an allowance for vista pruning.
Yep.
So I don't think it's an issue. I'm all
Okay.
set.
Okay. Bill?
I think it's a great plan. I think this is what we've been looking for in these houses near the lake, is to keep the vegetation the way it is along the edge of the water. So I have no issues with this. I'm glad you're putting the roof and into the ground, the roof water. I think you did a great job on the plan. So I have no issues.
Thanks. Sean?
I'm good with it.
All right, all right.
Nope, fine.
All right, this is a public meeting, so are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this project? See if there's anyone coming up. I don't see any indication. Are you coming up? Yep. Okay, we do have somebody.
Gary Baker, 24 7th Lane. directly about the property. I've had the opportunity to speak with the owners today and have looked at the plan, and I think it's a great plan. I'd like to see as much vegetation left as possible. I hate when someone comes in and clears the lot completely, and it makes me crazy, but they seem to be want to keep as much vegetation as possible. And I think it's a great plan, so,
Good.
thanks.
Thanks, appreciate your input.
Could we ask the applicant any trees that are coming down to replace them?
Are you gonna be able to replace any trees that are coming down?
We didn't propose any replacements, but if the commission,
We like that.
Encourage it.
We encourage it. So, anything you can do there, we appreciate.
Well, you should put it in as a condition.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like 4 trees. That's a lot
Whatever
of
they
trees.
take down anyways.
Yeah, if you're, I think it's 2
yeah,
removing,
it's
right?
two,
It's
two to be removed, just, and
I
then
would just say
two
2 native,
prune.
2 native trees would be a good,
Okay.
all right?
Go for 4.
4?
I mean, we don't need big giant trees.
Yeah,
How big
that's
are the trees that are coming down?
They're
There's
big.
a 30-inch and a 20, I want to say 22.
Yes.
It's a big old oak tree.
Yeah, 4 would be good.
Yeah, let's go for 4. I don't think 4 is ours.
I'd like to see 4 native trees.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I will take a motion to close the hearing.
I move, Mr. Chairman, to close the hearing.
Motion from Chris, second from Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the hearing is closed. Take a motion for an approval with conditions. Chris, you're good at.
Yeah, I make
wording.
a motion that we approve this project plan with our standard order of conditions, as well as a couple of special conditions. One was that prior to the dock cut, that we have, you notify our agent prior and have it kind of marked out so he's able to see exactly what's proposed with the cutting there. And then number 2, let's see, number 2, we'll have 4 native trees planted somewhere on the property to compensate for the ones that are coming down.
Okay.
And is there anything else? Am I missing anything?
Oh, no, that was it.
Can we emphasize leaving at least 25 feet of vegetation along the shoreline? Just-
Well, but they have to come back and see the commission.
Well, I understand that, but if it's a permit condition, it's a little bit more front and center.
Well,
Well, we could deny it then when they come back.
Well, I'm thinking of the case where, not this applicant, but people often don't come back. And then the shrubbery is gone, and then you've got lake pollution problems. I mean, it is that direct.
No, I don't know about that one, Peter.
It's on the plan that they're gonna leave them,
Yeah.
isn't it? David, you were out
you
there.
could.
Does the plan actually say that?
I know, you could
Plan
put a
doesn't say
condition, you could put a condition that cites the bylaw regulations that says that,
Yeah.
it's 25-foot no disturb setback. I mean, that's,
You're just underscoring a bylaw that we
right,
have.
yes.
Yeah, that is the guidance from MACC, Carl, to
Okay.
duplicate that, to
Okay.
keep it front and center. Because it's important. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yep.
So I had those 2 conditions, and then I think I could add a 3rd condition in, Peter, with just again, that any vegetation removal within that 25-foot very sensitive zone, that be in compliance with our bylaw.
Of course, yep.
And legally, you got to do that anyway, so I'll add that in as well.
Okay,
So that's the motion.
thank you, Chris. Motion from Chris. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Bill. Any further discussion before we vote? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion's unanimous.
Great, thank you. Have
Thanks
a good
very much.
evening.
Nice job. Good presentation.
Yeah.
Glad to see the neighbors are happy too. That's a good one.
Thanks,
That's a
yeah.
win. So, very good. Okay. Next up on our agenda, we are at the next item is the notice of intent for the St. John the Evangelist Church at 115 Middlesex Street. This is continued from our June 11th meeting, and Mr. Hamel is here representing the applicant. And we have, David, do you have any preface here, or should we just go right to?
Well, yeah, I can say a little bit.
Before we start, Carl, I got to recuse myself on this one. I got a conflict, so I just step
It's
out.
a trend tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the commission recalls that commission had asked the DPW engineering division to review and provide comments, which they did do. But they said that according to Mr. Rapucci of engineering, that he has not received a response to the comment. So I guess you'll address that.
I'll address that this evening, yes.
Okay.
Okay, for the record, my name is Bernard Hamill. I'm the project engineer for this project. Just to recap, we did meet with you in June. You asked that we contact or send plans over to the Chelmsford Engineering Department. David, I believe you did that. We received a letter yesterday afternoon from the Chelmsford Engineering Department outlining a number of comments and concerns that they had with this particular project. Overall, I generally agree with their comments. They made some observations that this was a stopgap measure, basically a patch to fix part of the problem on the site. It does not fix the whole problem on the site. It just puts some of the water in the ground. It does take care of some of the siltation and salt that's going into the wetlands currently, but it is a fix that the church can generally afford. If we had to go much further with this, we would have to cancel the project. I mean, quite honestly, I just learned yesterday that they had a failure of their furnace that has to be replaced. So funds are very, very tight. But basically, what you see before you is the same layout that we presented last time on June 11th. We are proposing a leaching system in the parking lot to pick up the excess water. The parking lot does flood on a regular basis, particularly in the wintertime. Ice is up. Is a hazard to pedestrians and vehicles alike. It also limits the parking on the site. Basically, what we're trying to do is just remove a portion of the water. We're not going to remove all of it. If we have a major storm event, we're going to have problems. We know that. We think this is what the church can afford. This is what they've indicated they can afford prior to their furnace failure. And we're, going to be asking for approval regardless of Mr. Rapucci's letter. I thought he wrote a very, very good letter. Looked at it very deeply. But it will drain the water. It might not drain as fast as we want, or it might drain faster than Mr. Rapucci believes. We are replacing all that loamy sand with pure coarse sand, so we should get a much faster drainage rate. We should also get some removal of sediment from the system because we have a water quality inlet there. We haven't changed that. One thought that I did have that you may want to make a condition is we're just showing a simple drainage system. Sometimes these systems have a 5-foot clear zone around them. To add a little bit extra sand, you may want to make that a condition. That was just a thought to gain some extra leaching capacity. It would only cost a few more $1,000, but it might be worthwhile. Other than that, this project is exactly the same as what we presented last time. If you feel we need to go back to Mr. Rapucci with a rebuttal, so to speak, basically it's going to be what I just said to you, that this is what we can afford. We can't afford to go and fix the whole site.
Okay, thank you. So David, your thoughts?
I think Mr. Rapucci deserves the courtesy of a response. That's a typical process in these hearings. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that process or not, but yeah, the process typically is to respond to Mr. Rapucci's comments item by item. So I think he really does deserve that, the courtesy of that response. I mean, ultimately, to which he may then provide a follow-up response. Ultimately, it's the commission's decision, though, on this particular case. If the commission at the end of the day feels that you've made a reasonable effort to comply with the regulations, and the commission will approve the project. But I think we need to go through the process at this point.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay, I tend to agree, but why don't we start down at this end and see, John, if you have comments or questions?
Do we think this is gonna be big enough?
Well, as I think it's been pointed out a number of times, that it's basically a Band-Aid solution.
Band-Aid.
I don't think Tony went into it in his letter, but I will certainly ask him for clarification once Mr. Hamill provides a response to his initial comments. But when I spoke to Tony, that he said that Middlesex Drive, which I think is a source of at least a fair amount of this problem, is on the list of the DPW's, I guess, problem streets or whatever. And he even mentioned to me that they're in the process of applying for a big grant to address some of these problems on this road and others, or at least that's what I believe I understood him to say. But I think we definitely should get clarification from him. I think that would be appropriate to include that again in his follow-up response. But I will specifically ask him for that. But yeah, I mean I think that would be a huge help. What Mr. Hamill is proposing is actually pretty minor. I think it's only meant to really improve the worst of the conditions, right?
Yeah. No, I guess if it's gonna be a Band-Aid, it's gonna be a Band-Aid. I don't know what else you could do. I'm not gonna design something, but.
Well, hopefully that's where the town. He told me that Middlesex Drive is not a state road; it's a town road.
That's Route 3A.
So, okay, well, then I'll point that out to him. Maybe there's nothing the town can do about it, but he insisted to me it was a town road.
Okay. Bill?
David, what are the big issues that they brought up, the town? What are his concerns?
Well, there are a number of them. It's basically to whether it's designed to meet the regulations. I'm not sure. It's not completely clear to me whether he has the concern that it's not just going to function as intended. I think he kind of does have that concern. But again, that's where I think some back and forth should resolve that.
That's what I was wondering.
I think they need to go to the next step and go back and forth and answer the questions like we normally do, and
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and the applicant.
because there might be
is-
something there that's going to help them out.
Right.
Yeah.
And the applicant is not paying for that review, so
Right.
I think that's reasonable.
It's free information.
Yeah, it's free information.
Okay,
That might go-
thanks. Mark?
I'm gonna wait till I hear back from peer review.
Okay,
We'll make a decision then.
yep. Peter?
I just have like one or two quick questions. Do you have a engineer's guesstimate? I don't think you've run the hydraulic analysis, but how much of your water problem is coming from Middlesex Street? And if it were fixed, do you have any guess? Is it like half or 10% or most of it?
We are at the bottom of a bowl here. When I took the town maps, because it was a fairly large area, I guesstimated between 17 and 18 acres contributing to our bottom of bowl problem.
Right.
Some of it's coming from up above, behind this site. Some of it's coming, we think, from Middlesex Street, but only in major storm events, because there is a lip on Middlesex Street that
Okay,
leads
just the
up
big
into the
ones.
parking lot. So if we get a 100-year storm, we know we're going to get something from Middlesex Street. We also looked at those catch basins at on Middlesex Street that are right in front of the driveways here, and we didn't find an outlet. We think that they might be leaching catch basins, or the outlets are buried.
Right.
We don't know what's going on with them, but we could not find an outlet. We walked down towards the river, walked into the cemetery area. We didn't see any outlets for those things.
Thank you. And then just quickly, David, you might be able to help me. the wetland that we're talking about, that brings us all here tonight, somebody said something about that being a infiltration basin for a prior development, but that's not what, does anyone know? That's
No,
not
I
what
don't,
that is it?
well, I'll let him answer.
Or do we know? I mean, I don't know if it's relevant, but I just,
The wetland area is on the church property, but up above it, up in this area off of, I think it's Ellen Drive, is it?
Ellen, I believe it is, yeah.
There's a 5 or 6 lot subdivision
Right.
that was recently put in, and that was built with a detention basin that drains down into the church property.
okay, so it's out of the scope of this meeting and out of our jurisdiction, well, not this infiltration, but I just throw that on the table. I mean, if that basin is not functioning properly, I'm just curious how much of the problem that might be contributing. And is that another avenue, back to John's point, is a holistic solution?
Yeah, the math that we reviewed on it seems to work on that basin. Whether or not the basin was constructed properly, we don't know. We didn't want to go on private property, and our focus was what's being contributed by the parking lot area
Yeah.
and how are we affecting the wetland area
I'm
behind
going a
it.
little bit afield here, but.
But
I
we
wanted to
did
ask you.
look at the overall picture of the neighborhood, and we're at the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But I just want to state for the record, though, that I have spoken to the owner of that small subdivision, and he vehemently denies that his drainage basin has anything to do with the creation or worsening of this wetland.
Right, but that basin was, I presume, permitted by this commission.
No,
Or
no,
DPW,
no,
or not?
no. This is an isolated wetland that I'm sure was artificially created by the fact that is what you just mentioned.
Got it.
For decades, it has been at the bottom of a bowl, and as more and more impervious surface in the area was constructed, there was more and more runoff into this area, and that's probably from the perspective of the wetland interest, that's probably the only function and value it serves is flood storage capacity, you know? And
Then why don't we rebuild that basin and put in your small system and fix Middlesex Road, and then you've got no problem.
any idea how much that would cost?
No.
We are talking about a Band-Aid here, so.
And we got guys with backhoes that like to dig stuff in town for free.
We would be happy to dig that out
Yeah.
and
Okay.
solve our problem.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Peter?
No, thank you.
Thanks. So I think where we're at is we need to continue. We need to have you have a back and forth with our town engineer who has some good input, and we can maybe take it to the next step. And I would guess at this point be looking for a continuation to our next.
I'd like to go 30 days if possible, because
Our next meeting is 30 days.
oh, then that will work excellent.
Yeah, we don't have a meeting in 2 weeks, so it would be August 13th, I think, is our next meeting, so.
Yeah.
Anything else, so the action would be for the applicant to be talking with our engineer?
Well,
with the
yeah, I
town
think
engineer.
respond, provide a written response to Mr. Rapucci's comment letter here, and just if you could please CC me on that when you email it.
I would really like to just meet with him first, go over the line items first in person with him, and then provide the response letter. That way we can come to an understanding as to what he's looking for and why it will or will not work.
Okay. Well, we'll see if he's agreeable with that.
If he's not agreeable, we'll use your methodology.
But if you could email him with that request
I
and
will.
CC me.
I will. I certainly will.
Perfect. All right, I'll take a motion to move this, continue this hearing to August 13th.
So moved.
Motion from Bill. Second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Thank
Thank you very much. Appreciate your attention here. Good luck. Good luck. Okay, next up on the agenda, we are at the notice of intent for, continued from June 25th. This is the Property Possible Incorporated, 10 Hildreth Street, with David Cowell, and you're not David Cowell, you are Brian Goudreau. So, hello, Brian.
Good evening. For the record, Brian Goodrow with Hancock Associates. I do have reduced copies of the exhibit plan that went out yesterday, so I could just hand those out.
Thank you, Brian.
you.
Thanks. Thanks, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
So just to be clear, Brian, this is a plan that's been modified from our previous plan.
Correct.
And I think you sent the copy to us yesterday, or was it today?
It was yesterday.
Okay, so it's not very old.
It is not.
Okay.
So, when we met last, we had discussed kind of big picture how we could limit our impacts within Lot 4, and a lot of that revolved around roadway zoning requirements, subdivision regulation, and that falls under the jurisdiction of the planning board, which were before concurrently with the Conservation Commission. So after we met last, we had a follow-up meeting with the planning board where we discussed at length a number of kind of those roadway construction criteria and tried to understand exactly what items the board would potentially be willing to waive. They did receive the email from the commission, so we do appreciate that. And as Joel had indicated earlier tonight, a straw poll was conducted and the board indicated sidewalk on one side would be acceptable. So if you recall our previous plan, we were requesting no sidewalks, no curbing, and the roadway width to be reduced down to 20 feet. We're viewing this as more of a private shared driveway than an actual roadway construction, even though it does fall within subdivision regulation. Didn't really get a lot of information on any of the other waiver items. So on the plan that you have before you, we've been able to reduce the right-of-way to reflect a sidewalk on one side, but the right-of-way is still wide enough to accommodate full roadway construction, curbing, grass strips, and that sidewalk, and also the full cul-de-sac at the end, should the hammerhead turnaround not be approved as well. And, well, what that did for us was it allowed us to pull Lot 4 about 20 feet further north. So on the previous plan, the back of the house on Lot 4 was right about at the 100-foot buffer. So we were asking for a little bit of what is currently lawn-ish to be maintained for the use of Lot 4. Now, since we moved the lot north by about 20 feet, the house is entirely outside of the buffer, the deck's entirely outside of the buffer now, and we are showing a very small area in the outer fringes of the 100-foot buffer to remain as lawn area. So we have this, V-shaped pattern directly behind the structure. On the right-hand corner and the left-hand corner are about 10 feet into the buffer. So it's actually represented by the stippled hatching on either side. So there's 330 square feet on one side, 370 square feet on the other side. So there's about 720 square feet of buffer zone that we would like to maintain as lawn area. So the goal for us for this evening, because this is just an exhibit, we have to fully engineer the plan, go through stormwater calculations, and fully revise our submission package to be reviewed by engineering, DPW, and go through the process that we've done a couple of times so far. We're looking for a little indication from the commission if this is acceptable, if there's concerns that remain with this slight alteration or slight maintaining of lawn area within the buffer. And then also, once we kind of understand that piece of it, just what else is out there with this reduced kind of impact plan that we have. What other items do we need to still address with respect to the vernal pool habitat, potential restoration? We have the natural heritage plan that's out there with a turtle habitat, creation of a nesting area, and then some cleanup of various debris piles on site. So really, we want to understand if this plan seems to be somewhat amenable, and if not, what the issue is so we can address it, and then just the other outstanding items. So when we fully revise everything and we're back before you, hopefully on the 13th, I believe it was, we can continue to move the project forward. Now, I guess the other kind of item that I just want to reiterate from last time is this is now a 4-lot subdivision, and the entire balance of the land indicated by parcel X is to be remained in a natural and custody of the Conservation Commission. And then specific to lot 4 and this yard area that we're discussing, the split rail fence that demarcates kind of the parcel X, the open space, if you will, is carried across the back of lot 4. So at the edge of this lawn area, anywhere from 0 to 10 feet inside the 100-foot buffer, there is a split rail fence demarcating where there is lawn and then where it is to be naturalized. And that portion of lot 4 would contain the same covenant, the same easement that the rest of parcel X would have. So with that, I'm curious to hear any comments the commission has.
Thank you, Brian. David, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So, Brian, how much lawn now is there between the back of the relocated house and the buffer zone? And I guess what I'm getting at is, if there was no encroachment with lawn into the buffer zone, how much lawn would there be for this house?
10 feet on the right side and 16 feet on the left.
Okay.
Would be the lawn.
Would be the lawn.
Yes.
If we were to move the limit of work to the 100-foot lawn.
And what about in the middle there at the widest point?
I would say 27 feet, 26 feet. So it would go from on the right-hand side about 10 feet to 26 feet in the center, and then down to 16 feet again, kind of in that V-shaped pattern.
So, I mean, it's probably a subjective judgment, but I think that's sufficient lawn would remain if there were no encroachment into the buffer zone. Again, my opinion remains that that it's important to protect all of the buffer zone in this situation, given the circumstances. I would say, though, that if this is sort of the bottom line plan that your client wants to proceed with, I would say that the commission should get it peer reviewed.
Get what? Just for clarity, what peer review?
Well, I think I mean we sort of have to think in detail about the scope of the peer review, but I would say, number one, the impact to the upland habitat for the buffer zone. The upland habitat to the vernal pool. That for the critters, for the species that breed in the vernal pool, but I also think that the scope should include the potential impact to the turtles. I mean, that really hasn't been discussed much, and I don't so far, and I don't even know if Natural Heritage has been advised that a vernal pool has been found in the priority habitat, but I think that should, my opinion is that should be scope as well. How does this plan, this encroachment into the buffer zone potentially impact the turtle habitat and the turtles' life cycle? So I think those are the two that jump out at me right away. But I have to think a little bit more that there may be additional items that I feel should be addressed or be included in the scope of work.
Okay. Thank you, David. Peter, we want to start us off again?
Yeah, just quickly, I agree with you, David, because I know our reg says 100 feet. I also know the science and the biologists say it's really more like 300 or 400 feet, so my brain immediately goes to David's question. I mean, we can't protect beyond 100 feet, I respect that, but the question I have is, what does it mean to have this big house in the middle of what we know is really the upland habitat, even though our regs I realize, don't give us the direct authority. So I'll let bigger brains figure that out. And then secondly, Brian, I got two more things. The area on your plan, the area that's called naturalized area, isn't that the area where there used to be a bunch of big trees on the aerial photos, or there still are? And then what's the plan, Brian, what's your current plan? Is the plan, I mean, help me out here. My understanding is that the critters like tree leaf litter, not a naturalized area. It's specifically leaves. And I don't know if that's correct, but if that is, I would just advocate for some trees in the natural area. That's all. And if I got the science wrong, then, I feel differently. And then I have a wild idea. Brian, what's this thing? Oh, this thing is turned into a hammerhead or something like that. Is there, forgive me if this is a crazy idea, but parcel X, if I got this straight, is there any chance this area we're discussing could be incorporated into parcel X?
So to answer that, no, because the way that you can create a lot with suitable frontage, lot width, dimension, there's minimum criteria there. So we can't assume that area into parcel X. What we can do is carry the restriction onto lot 4 to mirror what's happening on lot X. But lot 4 would still remain in private ownership.
With the same restrictions as?
With the same restrictions.
Or if parcel X was conveyed to the Conservation Commission, which I think was mentioned as a possibility,
Yep.
then it would just be a restriction on lot 4.
It would be a restriction on lot 4 that, yep, correct.
Yeah, well, that would make me comfortable. So that's all I had, Carl.
Okay, thanks. Chris?
Yeah. Yeah, Brian, my thoughts, I mean, I think we've made progress. I think we made some significant progress addressing our concerns particularly around the habitat and losing habitat and protecting that 100-foot buffer zone. So I think we've made progress. I think we're a lot closer, certainly, than we were before. Sounds like we're not quite there. I know I was striving towards kind of getting the project to that point where it wasn't encroaching at all into that 100-foot buffer zone. So we're not there yet. But we have made progress. And those are my thoughts at the moment.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
I agree with what Chris has to say on I'd like to see it all out of there, but I think depending on what you can do there, I'd like to see something more than just a fence to demarcate the 100-foot, something boulders, where it's a permanent, it doesn't get moved around, where a post doesn't really do anything. I know it's a small item. It's not gonna make or break it.
Just so I could, split rail fence, so it's not just posts every 15, 20 feet. It's gonna be a split rail fence running the entire length of that, and it also goes onto parcel X, circles the cul-de-sac, and ties back into the rock wall in the northeast corner.
Right, that's the delineation with the round circles
Yep.
every.
So it's a line with the small squares on it.
I don't know, I'd like to hear a little more what David was requesting. And, the things I was thinking about were really small items that I'll address at our next meeting, depending how you make out with planning. I'm all set.
Okay. Bill?
Brian, why not take those two areas out of the debate here?
Marketability and usability of the house.
But
So
if you take it out of our jurisdiction,
I know.
you just square that off. It seems like
So based on this conversation, I'll discuss that with the applicant to see if we can revise it further. But it revolves around, you know, saleability of the property, marketability, giving these guys a rear yard to be able to.
But they've got side yard there.
They do.
I mean, there's plenty of side yard on both
Both
sides.
sides.
Both sides of it. You know, the back, you could square that off, straighten that line out, and be out of our jurisdiction on the back. It would just seem to me, be a little cleaner than 380 feet here and 330 feet here.
And make life a lot easier for
Right.
you from a permitting standpoint.
No, understood, and that will be the conversation I have.
I mean, this plan, you're going back tomorrow night to the planning board, so
Correct.
this hasn't been approved. There's issues with this that they've still need to decide, so
There's a
you're just
lot
getting
of
a feeling from us. So based on that, if you don't get, the planning board's gonna kind of run this from now, at this point.
Well,
What are you gonna come back to us if they don't agree to this? You're gonna
So-
come back with the old plan?
what we've done with the planning board is we got very specific direction on the sidewalk. So that specific direction on the sidewalk allows us to basically have the plan before you tonight. So, you know, notwithstanding the discussion I need to have about work within the buffer remaining for the lawn, anything that happens with the planning board is no longer going to affect conservation.
They have to give you waivers on some of this stuff, or is that?
Even if they don't give us waivers,
Yeah.
we still won't have to revise the plan, the geometry of the right-of-way and Lot 4 as shown.
Okay, all right. So, all right, that's the only question I had. I think to take that out of our jurisdiction would be the way to go at this point. And I agree with Mark also, that split rail fence, maybe you put some bushes right behind it, or blueberry bushes, or just something.
I like to see something very permanent.
Yeah, I think a vegetative barrier
Yeah,
would
some
really
kind of
be
vegetation
desirable.
on the back side of that fence would just,
It could be attractive, honestly. It could be attractive.
right. So that's all I had, Carl.
Okay, thank you, Bill. John?
I agree with Bill. For the 10 feet, I would try to take it out. Okay? The 10 feet's not a lot with the side yard they got and the open area they got to the right. Okay? On parcel X. I think you're gonna alleviate a lot of problems for 10 feet. I thought we had discussed this at the last meeting, that if they got the relief, we gave it a blessing at the last meeting to go to planning board. And somehow that signal
We
got
said,
crossed.
yeah, no, it was pretty clear, I think. We said that that we would be happy if,
It was outside
it
our
was outside of our
Exactly.
jurisdiction.
That's what we said.
That was the wording. that we had.
Outside our jurisdiction?
Yeah. And they understood that.
Right, okay,
I'm
well,
confident they understood that. And I'm confident Brian understood that. I'm quite
Yeah.
sure.
Certainly
I-
not.
But here we are, so. Anything else, John?
No, you know how I feel about the wetland.
Yeah, okay. So I think at this point, we're at a point where we have a proposal that I think you've heard the gist of our sense of this. The more you get it out of our jurisdiction, the happier we are. I think David's recommendation, I would support that as well, that if we were going to stick with this plan as proposed, that would be recommending a peer review. We are really, I'm consistent with David on this. I think even the hydrology of the land, you know, the water and how that impacts the pool, the vernal pool, I'd want to understand that. So all of those kinds of things are what I think we're looking at. So at this point, I think, and I know from a little bit of following the planning board, there's a lot of other issues that you have in front of them. And so I think right now, my recommendation would be that we continue this to our next meeting. I think makes sense for you, Brian.
So if, just one question before. So I understand the commission's position on the yard and kind of what we're proposing here. So if I go back to the applicant, we kind of resolve that. What I'm hearing is we want a little bit of a naturalization plan specifically for Lot 4 and kind of this area of disturbance within the buffer zone right now, with special attention being paid to the fence or whatever demarcation we're going to be providing at that 100-foot buffer. In relation to plans that were previously submitted with turtle habitat, nesting habitat, and the restoration, the removal of the debris piles, is there additional information the commission needs on that? Because what I'm looking to do here is hopefully we can come to an agreement kind of internally. When we put the next plan before you, it will be fully engineered, hopefully resolve the concerns about the buffer zone impact that we have, and then we'd be going towards hopefully an order of conditions. So if there's remaining detail that the commission hasn't seen, I would just like to be.
So I know that the Board of Health has still an open hearing on the, was it the Phase 1, 21E Phase 1, and also the, what was the other one?
GPZ, Groundwater Protection Zone.
Yeah. So that we have an interest in hearing how that comes out. It's not necessarily, wouldn't change a lot for us.
But I think, Brian, if I understand your question correctly, you're asking the commission, let's say that you are able to get the lawn completely out. You're asking with respect to the rare species. Is there any additional issues?
Is there additional information that we need to provide on the revised plan set?
I would like to see Natural Heritage be informed of the existence of this vernal pool.
Okay.
To see if that affects their decision at all. Because, the regulations say the commission can't close the hearing until we get an approval letter from Natural Heritage. But I want to make sure that they incorporate into their decision, knowledge of the vernal pool. And maybe it won't affect their decision at all. But I want to see that they are aware of the vernal pool.
Yeah, good point.
Well, and aware and that they thought about it, not just that they were notified.
Well, I don't know if we have any control over that.
Well.
But it'd be nice if I could have a conversation with them.
Lauren Glorioso is the reviewer at Natural Heritage, if you'd like to give her a call.
Lauren Glorioso.
Lauren Glorioso.
Yes,
But
we can hold that out
yes,
to
I
them, but
will.
I think it's your responsibility
Certainly.
to inform them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can I just add, our bylaw is crystal clear. We're supposed to pay special attention to endangered species habitat, but the law also says Natural Heritage kind of supersedes us, so to speak. Well, we still have that obligation in our bylaw. I need to get feedback from Natural Heritage, and you chatting with the reviewer there is perfect. That would be, I would not be comfortable voting for this, approving this, without understanding what the experts said about our endangered species habitat, because we did not do the wildlife survey we were pushing for.
So is that clear, Brian?
Yep.
Sorry,
Yes.
don't mean to be so forceful.
Yep, okay. Anything else?
Is there anything else we're looking for if he takes that out of
Anything
the,
else?
other than the national heritage?
No, nothing major. I think again we can talk about the details of the disposition of parcel X and the restriction on lot 4. But I think
Are we waiting for the information from the Board of Health before we do anything?
well
Because they're not
that's-
scheduled till sometime in August, right?
Correct. So the next Board of Health meeting, I believe, is August 2nd.
Something like that.
So is it, make sense for you to come to a meeting after that?
Well, we're going to be continued to August 13th.
August
So we'll
13th? Oh, okay.
have the next
Okay.
Board of Health
But-
meeting.
But
Okay, we skipped the meeting.
But there's two things. Aren't there two things that we're interested in from the Board of Health? One is the contamination stuff,
Phase 1.
Yeah.
Phase 1. And the second is we still have, and again, it's not our direct jurisdiction, I guess, but we have the Chelmsford Water District letter saying they didn't like septic 400 feet from their well. Now, whether that affects our decision, I'll leave to the lawyers, but I'd like to, just for background, understand those two things.
Well, as far as I remember, they're not in the Zone 1. They're outside of Zone 2. Is that correct?
We are
they're
within,
in zone
we're,
two.
we're within the
Have to
zone
be.
2, and we're within the groundwater protection zone, so 2 overlays.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
You're in zone 2?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, didn't the letter from the water department said that if you were in
It's
contiguous...
zone 1s and wetlands tributary to zone 1s, which expands it exponentially.
But the letter said Chelmsford Water District had extreme concerns and didn't want the project to move forward. They were about that, I'm paraphrasing, but they were about that clear.
That was pretty close.
No, remember
Yeah,
that was pretty
It was
clear.
very strong language.
And
yeah.
again, I mean, they advise, I think the authority is the Board of Health, as I understand our town regs, but they rely on Chelmsford Water that has their own requirements for testing, and however they come up with that decision, I don't know.
At risk, yeah.
Yeah, and the only reason it matters here, it's not that we have a reg that says we have to pay attention to that, but we've got, our regs say we have to consider water pollution and protecting groundwater resources as part of our decision-making, so we need that information. You know, if the water district is fine, then I'd feel better, and if they don't like it,
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to create a problem for them.
Is that part of your discussions with the Board of Health?
It
As
is.
far as the water, that letter?
Yes.
Okay, so-
Absolutely.
But Bill, my point was there's 2 issues there, and I don't know which one the Board of Health is planning on talking about at the next hearing. Whether it's both of those issues, the Phase 1 contamination study and Chelmsford Water, those are 2 things.
It is, so...
They both on the agenda, you think?
They are. So
Cool.
right
Great.
now, the Board of Health has required a peer review of both the Phase 1 and the hydrogeologic analysis. That will be completed anytime. We
Okay.
haven't received the results.
It's already a little late, right?
It is a bit, and we'll be discussing it at the August meeting. So I should have an update for the commission on the 13th.
Oh, thank you for that. I was not aware of that. Thank you.
Carl? So Carl, I mean, I'd like to be able to make a motion at our meeting in August to close this hearing, but we've got a few things still open. I mean, obviously, one, if they're outside our buffer zone that we care a lot about, outside that jurisdiction, one, and then number 2, we need to get that comfort that, you know, the water's safe, we don't have to worry about it, so we're looking for some comfort from the water
That and the
district.
National Heritage.
Board of Health.
And
yeah.
then we got, so that's 2 was the, you know, the Board of Health, the Water District dealing with the water quality issues,
Yeah.
and then
And a
Natural Heritage, right?
Connection to the National Heritage, yeah.
Getting that Natural Heritage approval, and, you know, making sure that we've got comfort there, that we're
So
we're
it's
not
really
doing
3
anything
things,
bad.
I think.
Really 3 things, yeah. And if we get that done, and we come back in August, I'd like to be able to
That would be,
make a motion to close the hearing.
Yeah, if we can get our peer review that quick.
Well, which peer review?
we don't have a peer.
We're not gonna get a peer review.
Nothing?
If they pull this out of that
Well,
buffer
out.
zone,
We don't
we
have a
we don't need that.
Yeah,
If they're
fair enough.
holding to that, then
Yep.
we're gonna be looking for a, you know, a very
No, you're right.
comprehensive
You're
peer
right.
review.
Yep.
You're right.
Yeah.
Good, I'm glad you asked, so now we know.
No, that's a good point.
No, you're right.
Yep.
You're just thinking ahead of me.
No, we're not
Okay,
that far off.
so a motion from,
I
was that a
move to
motion?
continue to our next meeting, which is August...
13th?
13th.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, we can
Public.
have input from the public tonight, that's fine, yeah. We're not, even though we're not closing the meeting, absolutely, yep.
Sorry, just figured
You're
I'd
here,
ask.
so we'd love to have you
You're
talk.
right.
yep.
I know you guys
Also,
missed this
we,
window shop.
We appreciate, we've gotten a lot of emails in as well, too, and we appreciate that input that we're getting from people.
Thank you. So Marcy Comtois, 24 Hilda Street. Marcy Comtois, 24 Hilda Street. So I know we're talking about trying to get lots of stuff out of your jurisdiction. If you don't mind if I step away from the mic for a moment.
Yep.
So I have a question about this parcel that is in the 100-foot buffer zone. Now, I've seen hundreds of plans for this, and in one of the plans that was presented to you, it was a box with no indication as to what it was. The plan then went to the planning board saying that this was going to be a riprap apron for a weir that's going to be in here for the infiltration basin, which is in the 100-foot buffer zone. So it also tells you that there is an access utility easement to that. So something is still going here in the 100-foot buffer zone. So if you move this out, you still have something disturbing the 100-foot buffer zone that is still in your jurisdiction.
A good catch.
As I said, I have been looking at these plans
Make sure she gets paid.
for months. I would appreciate it because currently I am not working. I am a school teacher, so I am on summer vacation. I have more time to pay attention
So-
to some of these
Well,
things.
let's ask Brian
Yeah,
to
so
speak.
I was gonna say, do you have more questions, and then we
So,
can...
no, but that was my biggest of concerns because it's still, again, in any plan that has come to you, it is a box that shows nothing in it. But in a plan that went to the planning board, it is a box that says it is going to be a riprap apron that is attached to a weir that is used with the infiltration basin, all that other madness that was up in the thing before. But it still sits in the plan for you guys with nothing, but it is in the 100-foot buffer zone.
Very good question. Brian, do you want to address it?
So that's an easement, and it has remained consistent through all of our subdivision plans that have been submitted to the commission. There's an outfall pipe from the underground infiltration system underneath the roadway. So it's taking drainage from the road, we're treating it, we're infiltrating it within the right-of-way, and then the overflow discharge is a pipe within that easement. And I had spoken to that, I believe, last hearing, kind of describing parcel X, because there is a small segment of parcel X where we have to have this. And the reason why it's there is elevation. So it's topographically defined. That's the low point to get an underground chamber outflow out, essentially.
So have you been holding off on putting those details on the plan pending getting a better understanding of the conceptual revisions you've been proposing?
So it remains unchanged from the plans previously submitted, but it will be on the fully revised plan set.
Okay, you'll show the discharge,
Correct.
outfall and everything?
Yep.
Okay, because that I think that probably will require some additional discussion.
And,
Okay.
and excuse me,
that point.
Brian, how big is this structure, though? We're talking the outfall and the riprap that Marcy is, thank you, is referring to. Is the thing huge, or is it like your typical ones that we
It's
see?
a 12-inch ADS pipe.
The pipe's 12-inch, and then the riprap square footage, just roughly, I mean, is it 50 by 50 or 10 by 10?
No, it's probably 5 feet wide at the terminal end for maybe 5 feet of length.
So just the typical structures. Thank you.
And that's strictly for the flared end section. The rest of the pipe is buried in the
Right.
slope of the road.
Got it.
So, but again, we should plan for a more in-depth discussion
Yep.
at that point.
Okay. Next.
Hi, Anne Marie McMaster, 6 Hildreth Street. We've had very little discussion about the land that abuts us. But a couple of weeks ago, we have pictures of a turtle that I've never seen before. I'm told it could be a blanding turtle, which is on the endangered species list. But that's all I have. I just have
Can
pictures.
you give us the photos?
I'm sorry, did you
Thank
say
you.
it was on your property or on?
it was.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Interesting.
Thank you.
And my understanding is that they travel
Yeah.
over empty grasslands to get to water.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a painted turtle.
Still cool.
Yeah.
David, are we looking at a blanding?
No.
No? Okay.
Sorry. It's a painted turtle.
I trust David,
There-
sorry.
Nice try, though.
They're as common as, well, I won't say they're as common as dirt, but you can't get any more common than a painted turtle.
Okay,
And notice how it's by a fence.
yeah.
But is it
Right.
happy?
Trying to get
Okay.
underneath it.
Yes, sir, hello.
Paul Wood, 16 Hill Street. Mine are just a couple of questions, I guess, on the plan itself. Was, I know it's sort of out of your jurisdiction. We keep talking about natural heritage, I'm sorry. I know to the right of the proposed turning of the house, and I don't know if I can, when I look into the lot from a distance, there's a very big stand of trees. I'm not sure exactly where it falls. And I know this is a work in progress, since it's gonna be the cul-de-sac hammerhead, but there's a big set of trees here. 100-year-old trees. If that's gonna be even possible to maintain, because that's under national heritage, and they would have
Right.
the authority, if you can or can't take it down, but that's just something to consider. If you look into that lot, there's a big stand of trees there. There is even more over here, but this one's really big. That's right outside the buffer zone.
Okay.
That was just a question for Natural Heritage. My other, again, this is outside of your jurisdiction, but actually you sort of forced this question by encouraging, them trying to get that out of the buffer zone and with the email. Indirectly, Hilder Street is going to be directed. There are talks of widening the road, possible sidewalks, and I've talked to one of the senior engineers this spring, before all this, about that possibility, and they said when you widen the road and put in sidewalks, it's going to create a lot more drainage issues down Hilder Street. Well, down Hilder Street, I think John was concerned about how this vernal pool, down Hilder Street comes down to my yard and floods into the vernal pools. We're talking hydrology, and you don't have any control over that, but that's something that, that's possibly can affect the vernal pool tremendously.
Well, so, and they, if there's work in the commission's jurisdiction, they will have to file with the commission to
Well, I
get
mean, it's going to be
approval.
up on Hilder Street, I'm just saying that, but I don't know how they're going to deal with drainage issues, but, because I know Mr. McMasters, who's lived in the neighborhood longer than I have, I know John's concerned with that. When I moved in, that we'll call it the vernal pools, it's surrounded still probably about 70 feet, 70% of a barbed wire fence is still there. I cut it out of my backyard because of my kids. So that water's been there when that was a country road, I've been there 30 years. It acted like a vernal pool 30 years ago, and it still does. Dries out, fills. So that's been there forever on a country road. So now you're going to continue to make it more of a more of a residential. It's going to increase flow into there. It's just something so in 5 years, that vernal pool not going to exist anyhow because of flow down the street? I don't know. Just something to consider. I know it's not your jurisdiction, but.
Well, but the conservation could request, say, that the planning board include in its decision the opportunity to review potential impacts to the hydrology of that vernal pool from that work you have just described. So certainly something we can talk about.
A good issue as far as, I keep hearing about how, the change of water flows can affect the pool. And like I said, just the one new duplex they built, I think it's 1 and 3 on Hildreth. That's a hardscape now. Their driveway slopes right on Hilder Street. I've seen an increase in water coming down. It comes down to my yard and starts to push through my yard, floods the side of my yard more than it used to a few years ago. So, I can imagine, umpteen feet of sidewalk and 4 or 5 feet more of hardscape on the road. It's going to definitely do something. So, Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Thank you.
Brian,
Anyone
can I
else?
request something before next app? Could you show, besides the perimeter, what the existing trees that are on the parcel, so we know if anything's gonna be changed or removed? That's something you can do without great pains.
Where specifically?
The last person who spoke said, excuse me, there's some trees existing about where the access gate is a little north of that. Could you
Where
show
they're
those
located.
existing trees?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Any ones that are in the middle of the lot? We understand the perimeter.
Thank you.
Nate Montero, 4 Hildreth Street. Just have a reading from the letter from the Water District. I just have a question. The Chelmsford Water District strongly recommends that this project not proceed unless a viable plan is devised to ensure town sewage on site. I'm just wondering, has the applicant, the engineer, brought any other solution?
Not to us.
Okay. I find that very concerning based on an April 10th letter that they have serious threats about the septics. And the commission wants to just close this.
No, I didn't say that.
No.
I specifically said that we needed a letter from the Water
Okay,
District
then
that
Yeah.
addresses that exact issue, because I
Perfect.
agree with you 100%.
And at the Board of Health meeting, they're going to discuss that.
Right,
have
I'm
a
just
meeting
trying
with
to
the
make
Board
sure
of
that
Health.
there's collaboration between all,
Oh, yeah.
that this letter doesn't just get.
We're with you.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And then on the plan above on the top, they listed as a catch basin in front of 6 Hildreth. That's not a catch basin. That's a leaching field, a leaching basin. If you go the other way. Yeah, it does. Right there.
Oh, in the top left there?
That's not a catch basin. It's a very, it's a deceiving to say that that's a catch basin when that overflows Now you're gonna widen Hilder Street. That's gonna get overflowed and it's gonna flood down to the neighbors.
Okay.
So,
Pictures if you want that to show you what happens there.
just to accurate. And
Okay.
the email that I got from Linda today specifically stated that the engineer sent the email today at 10:58, even though he stated twice that he sent it yesterday. It's just hard to believe some of the stuff that is coming from the applicant and the engineer.
Okay.
Thanks.
Looks like we have one more. Hello, sir. Oh,
I will be brief. Bruce McMaster, 6 Hilder Street. I'm the catch basin guy. They did come and put the little scoop down and haul it all out this year, so that'll give me maybe 12 months before it starts coming down my driveway again, 100 miles an hour. All right. I just had a couple of thoughts. One is the plan revisions that Nate just referred to, whether you got them yesterday, whether you got them today, there's got to be some kind of procedure where these guys don't show up moments after submitting these plans.
There is.
Anybody here remember the Popeye cartoon?
sure.
You remember Wimpy?
Yeah.
I'll gladly
Gladly
pay you
Tuesday for a hamburger.
Tuesday
today.
for a hamburger you give me today. Yes, the Wimpy.
But we do. We have regulations that require that these things
So
be
we
filed
do,
days in advance.
but I also want to say that we knew that this change was on the plan was a small change. It's a big difference.
Okay.
But it's not like we're seeing a brand new plan that we've never seen before with all of the other stuff. So we understood that.
All right, I can see that.
Yeah.
And
I just don't understand why every commission in town is bending over backwards for these people.
No,
don't
I disagree with that, sir. We're not. We're trying to be fair, okay?
We're at
taking the
11.
job seriously. We're trying to be fair and honestly, and we appreciate the input, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to come down here, but we're not. We're
Okay,
trying to do our job.
that is fair enough.
And I'll just add that the lateness of the submission would have been cause for continuance of the hearing, regardless of whether the commission approved of the changes or not. But it was already assumed that this hearing was going to be continued anyway. at
Very
this
good.
point.
I was unaware of that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate your listening me out.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Linda Carney, 17 Hilder Street and 19 Plum, and I just wanted to really say that I am sorry that so much of our time has been wasted going over the same issues without having enough facts to base a decision on. And I just really hope that you guys do not close a hearing without hearing from Natural Heritage. And I think it's a shame that we have been told time and time again that the information the applicant has received from Natural Heritage would be given out to this department and to the planning board, and it still is not forthcoming. That's not fair to us as abutters, and it's not fair to you as the commission, and somebody's got to hold responsibility somewhere, and I'm not sure where that lies, but thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, good input from everyone tonight. Appreciate it. Anything else? Take a motion to continue.
I make a motion that we continue, Mr. Chairman, to our next meeting, which is scheduled for August 13th.
August 13th. Okay, motion from Chris.
Second.
Second from Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brian. Thanks to the folks in the audience. Really appreciate it. We are, I looked it up. It was a September initial meeting, opening of the hearing. So it's coming up on a year. So it's been a while.
I would second Linda Carney's comment, though.
Yeah.
That year is not on us.
No.
I want to be clear about that.
Okay, we are going to move on. We have a guest speaker who is come on up to the microphone. I think we're at that point. Am I right? Yes. So we have a proposed lighting bylaw. We have Mr. We have Mr. Kelly Beatty, who has got a proposal for a lighting bylaw, and he's asking us for, what are you asking of us?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm Kelly Beatty, 117 Park Road. I am proposing through the planning board a revision to the existing bylaw in the town for outdoor lighting. That's a zoning bylaw. It was passed in 2000. I helped write it with Bob Morse, who was on the planning board at the time. I also helped write the lighting aspects of a revised sign bylaw that came down the road. I am not a lighting professional. I'm just I'm a retiree who takes a keen interest in this stuff, and I've taught myself a lot about it. I'm also a member of the Massachusetts chapter of the Dark Sky International, which has been for a quarter of a century trying to reduce or eliminate light pollution. So, the existing bylaw is a zoning bylaw, and so consequently it's complaint driven, and a lot of the lighting that you see here in town, especially if it's an LED, a light emitting diode, has been in place since that bylaw was approved. Now, LEDs are a remarkable technology. They do a lot of things very well, but they do create an awful lot of light for very little electricity, and as a consequence, there has been a lot of very bright lighting installed in the town. All of the LEDs in town are should have been and are under the jurisdiction of this bylaw, and yet many of them, hundreds of installations, residential and commercial and municipal, do not satisfy the basic tenet of that bylaw, which is if a light is bright enough, 2,000 lumens, then it must be pointed down so that all the light hits the ground below horizontal. That's 2,000 lumens is roughly the brightness of a residential street light. It's quite bright. It's a quite high limit. What I propose to do, and I propose to the planning board, we're still trying to work out if this is something that is under the planning board's jurisdiction, because I propose a general bylaw to replace the zoning bylaw that expands on what is in place, adds some new criteria, one of which is color temperature. I'll get to that in a sec. Makes more restrictive use of a threshold after which the lighting has to be controlled. And importantly, because I want it to be a general bylaw, I want to retroactively make non-conforming all of the lights that have never satisfied the pre-existing bylaw. And we would give these lights a sunset provision of 5 years, 10 years. It's just in draft form at this point, by which time those lights have to be brought into conformity. So in other words, existing lighting would not be grandfathered. They would have to be brought into conformity eventually. I have various ways that I propose to make that happen more quickly. For example, if you are renovating if you're a business and you're renovating your property, if you're changing out the existing lights and putting in LEDs, a good case in point might be, for example, the Summer Street Mall, which has older style high pressure sodium lighting. This actually has been used once before with the existing bylaw. When the Chelmsford Mall, when Kohl's came into the Chelmsford Mall, the owners of that property replaced the street lights, the parking lot lights that were near Kohl's, and we use the existing lighting bylaw to require them to replace all the lights in that parking lot. It's quite good now, actually. Another wrinkle would be to try to accelerate this conversion. If the ownership of a property changes hands, then the lighting must be brought into conformity. It's no different than fire smoke detectors in your house, making sure that your sewer is up to code. This would be another thing along that line, something that would be required before the home could, or the business could change property. And then two more quick things about it. One is that it would require that all lighting have a color temperature below 3,000 Kelvin. And 3,000 Kelvin is what you would call a warm white light. I'll demonstrate it, but we're running late here anyway, but I won't do that for you. Yeah, actually, I'll just turn it on. 3,000 Kelvin is this light. 4,000 Kelvin is this light. Lighting engineers use this color temperature as a proxy for how much blue light is in the bulb. For those watching at home, I'm sorry, it doesn't show up on video very well. But the higher the color temperature, the more blue light. And blue light is the enemy, from your point of view, for conservation purposes. It creates more scatter, sky glow in the sky. It disrupts nocturnal environments. It disrupts human circadian rhythms. And of course, bright light also wastes more energy because much of what's being installed is much brighter than needs to be the case. The last thing I want to mention is that I'm hoping to have the enforcement of this move away from the building inspector per se. It would still stay with the building inspections department, but we would find on a contract basis, not a hire, a lighting professional who would be brought in to assure, because he or she would have the expertise, the meters and such, to make sure that installed lighting would be compliant. I'm working with the planning board to start this ball rolling. I met with them 2 weeks ago. I'm meeting with them again tomorrow night. They encouraged me to reach out to stakeholders. You are certainly a stakeholder. Light pollution is an existential problem for our nocturnal environment. It's growing nationwide at a rate of 10% per year. That is not sustainable. I'm happy to say that it's not 10% per year here in Chelmsford, but it's bad, and I'm like to try to do my best to do something about it. So I'll leave it at that for tonight. As far as what I'd ask of you, you've got the before and after bylaws annotated. That's what the planning board will be working with. It's just a draft. It's a citizen's attempt to craft some zoning language, and I expect it to be worked over quite a bit. There are some major stakeholders I haven't talked to yet, DPW, the Business Association, people that will be definitely impacted by this. I want to get their feel for it and come up with a good document. But I would hope that the Conservation Commission would be supportive of what I'm trying to do and weigh in as appropriate with the Planning Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I think it's great.
You have any-
Is there any incentive from Mass Electric or anybody else to, entice these people to do it, other than you ask them to do it, tell them to do it in the bylaws?
No, if you do a home audit or a business audit, Mass Electric used to supply LEDs for you. They don't actually do that anymore. LEDs have become so ubiquitous and so inexpensive that most people who want them have them already. So there's no monetary incentive to do this. One of the things but there are ways that somebody abiding by these new requirements that I'm proposing could save money. For example, if you have, if you're a business and you have parking lot lights that are on all night, this would not require you to install timers on them to turn them off at 11 o'clock, but it would be in your financial interest to do so because you would save money. This applies to the town as well. The town's street lights are on all night, every night, and right now there is no particular incentive for the town to turn them off halfway through the night, which is technically quite easy to do. And that's because the state's tariff structure for what the utilities can charge is disadvantageous. I'm actually working and helped write a bill that's going through the legislature right now that would fix that, but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. The point is there are ways that you can save money, but there certainly are ways to create a better nighttime environment in our town. This is a town that prides itself on the amount of conservation and open space that it has maintained, and I think this is a step that most townspeople, I hope, and business would find forward-looking, environmentally responsible, and ultimately make our place better to live.
So does the planning board have permit granting authority under the bylaw?
That's a really good question, and that's something that's being worked on right now. One thing is for sure, that the planning board would have to, if this went to town meeting, and there's no particular timetable for doing this, the planning board would have to recommend that the existing zoning bylaw be removed in order for the general bylaw to take its place.
So is the way it works now is that when does someone have to apply for a permit from the building inspector if it's more than 2,000 lumens?
No, if it's more than 2,000 lumens, then it has to meet certain minor, basic criteria like the horizontal downput.
But who in the town reviews that? The building inspector?
The building, if it's new construction, then the planning board requests a lighting plan. Right. How many lights you plan to put in? How bright are they going to be? What's their model? Serial number and so forth. But there's a lot of steps between that paper plan and the actual installation, even to the point that an owner having, if his or her contractor has installed the lights correctly, I want a little more light in that corner of the parking lot, and they'll tip it up, right? And then it's suddenly non-conforming. So in that case, it would require a complaint I have a couple of places in mind that I'm going to bring forward, that I think are particularly egregious here in town. And that's how the process works. And then it would be up to the building inspector to go out and make an ascertainment. The thing about the building inspector, I don't expect him and his staff to know anything about lighting. And that's why I would bring in a professional, the cost of which for bringing that person in could be, basically it's going to be the petitioner, whoever's putting in the lights, in most cases, or if the property changes ownership, just like you have to have, detectors now, it would be incumbent on the owner to make sure that the lighting complies.
Okay. Any other questions?
Is this include residential too, single-family houses?
Yes.
So if somebody has a floodlight on the back of their house or
So I
something
actually,
like that?
I've been very sensitive to that. I will say, I've been in this game a long time, and the most common lighting complaints are one neighbor versus another neighbor. It's not I'm complaining about what, some business on Drum Hill has. It's like the person next to me leaves their security lights on all night. Now, to fully comply, those lights would need to be replaced, fully shielded, no brighter than a certain amount. Same like if you had string lights around your property because you want to have a party every night. The off-ramp, the allowance would be if you take that security light and you put it on a motion detector instead of having it on all night, then you could retain a non-conforming light as long as it was on the motion. I've tried to make some allowances that are common sense for people who are going to be upset by this. For example, this shielding provision, we're bringing it down from 2,000 lumens to 800. 800 is a magic number. That's this bright. That's your standard issue porch light, right? That's what you probably have on your porch. I don't want to go chasing after people for their porch lights. That's not the big fish here.
Okay. Thanks.
Can I make a comment? Sorry I wasn't here, but I heard Kelly's presentation an hour ago. And I just want to say that in the conservation world, this is a big deal. I think you touched on that. And I just want to share something personal. I turned off my big outdoor floodlights when I realized that bang I heard once or twice a year at midnight that sounded like somebody throwing a softball at the back of my house. I realized that absolutely had to be an owl blinded by my floodlights. I was like, so for our purposes, the conservation piece, this is huge. I mean, the human piece and all the other arguments are great. But I just wanted to advocate for the conservation piece fits.
Well, it
our mission.
comes up when we do the turtle areas like we did on Brick Hill Road.
Right.
Yeah.
The lights were.
Right, but I think it's habitat in general.
Yeah.
It's not just turtles.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get into specifics if you want, not tonight in the interest of time. But I would ask two things of you. First, could you please help me make this a better bylaw by giving me your input, taking a look at what's there and letting me know where you see pluses, minuses, where it could be stronger or less so. And the second of all, engage with the planning board if that's where this ends up, I would hope your support and encouragement to go forward with it.
And can we take a vote later if it goes to town meeting and if we like it? I mean, if we don't like it, can we?
Yeah, we often do that kind of thing. Where
say
we
it's good for
vote in support
conservation.
of something, which obviously it's in draft, so we're not there yet. But
Right.
but when you get to like, this is what we're going to put to the town meeting, I'm happy to have that come before us and
Great.
go for it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, everybody.
Good stuff. Yeah.
You're on TV.
We should have had you first, and you would have had a good audience.
That's okay. Thank you again.
Now,
All right,
after
Jim.
this, you just need a bylaw for Starlink.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Do we sometimes get a reflective lighting plan for outdoor?
Well, the planning board requires a lighting plan, and there is a bunch of
we've got
town
the light
requirements
plan.
that
We see
are
it.
a little bit like this. They're not as far down the road.
Seen it on some projects, yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah.
Let's keep moving here. Update on the open space and rec plan. We do have a meeting next week on Tuesday. So just please, when you think of it with anyone you know, remind them that we have an open space survey. So please, I was thinking about it. I was out at Crooked Spring this morning, and I saw somebody walking, and after they passed me, I was like, I should have just stopped him right in the middle and said, here's a card. I don't have a card with me, but the card with the QR. Here, take this card and please, if you're using the site, take a survey. So the survey is on our conservation homepage. Thank you, David, for putting it there. So you can click on that and it'll get there. Next up, land management, Warren Poll. We do have the Parker Road easement completed. Woohoo, that finally got done. That's been a long time coming. We're still going through the legal machinery.
It hasn't, I don't think it's been recorded yet, but that should be this week.
Right, so this week, yep. And then we'll add that into the CR, and that should be the last thing. And I know we want to talk with the new KP Law, just to have them do a quick look at it and make sure there's nothing glaring from their point of view. But we would like to have them submit it now that we've moved on to a new council.
Yes.
And I'm sure they don't want to submit it without looking at it. So
Of course not.
So hopefully that's not an issue. I've already let Dale know he's aware of that. So we are still turning the crank on that, but hopefully we'll get it in there. Coulis is next on the agenda, but I don't really have much to say there. I know that, David, we've got a young man, Ben Cooper, is out there doing some wetland flag checking, and I think one of the things that we should have him do, you and I talked about this, is around the vernal pool, which is behind where the house was, we should go out 100 feet from those flags, put some stakes in the ground, and I've talked to John Ray about this, and he's all for it, so that the people that cut the field there, that they're outside of our 100-foot vernal pool area. So
And
we talked about that.
It's the high water, right?
Well, it's a wetland flag already. so-
Right, the vernal pool is probably within the wetland flags.
Yeah, but
Well,
it's
it has
probably
to.
smaller than it was in the spring, and the rule is 100 feet from high water.
Well, but what I'm saying is that the wetland flags probably are larger than that, so that the high water will be
Oh, I see
included
what
in the
you're saying.
wetland flag. So if you stake 100 feet from the blue flag, I think.
You think we're good?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So next is, David, can you put up that
Yes,
file
sure.
I sent you? So next is just to review the 5 parcels that I mentioned at the last meeting. We talked about this briefly, but there's 5 parcels that we would like to, I think the recommendation is, and this was somewhat of a conversation with John Souza in the finance, he's the director of finance here in the town. And so there's 5 parcels. 2 of them are on Hunt Road, 2 of them are right near the country club, and one is, it says Pine Hill, but it's, and Oak Street, but it's right off of 110 behind what's called the Chelmsford Woods condominiums. It's right up against 495. So if you go to the second page, so first thing is, these are parcels that are already owned by the town. All but one of the country club parcels were acquired through tax foreclosure. That other one was acquired when the town bought the country club land, we think, because it's the same date as the country club acquisition, and it's right next to it. And that these are all, as you'll see in the next pictures, they're all, almost all are significant wetland. So these 2 parcels, one in green and one in blue, are on Hunt Road. They're right opposite, I think it's Alcorn and, I forget the other, Blaisdell is the other road. So they're just, vegetated lots right there on Hunt Road. This is as you come off of 110 and take a right on Hunt Road heading towards, towards the old Agway,
But it looks like
towards
there's-
Vivian's house.
It looks like there's a fair amount of upland.
Yeah, and there is some upland, but the upland is locked in by the 2 lots on the top, and the very top there is the Chelmsford,
Swimming and tennis?
no, what do we call what's the name of the mobile home on 110?
Oh, it's on that side of the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
So-
110 is right up above that.
So they have frontage on Hunt Road. It would just be a matter of, say, putting in a footbridge across here, right? People to get trail access.
For use, yeah, if we wanted to access. yeah.
How big is it?
So one of them, the left one is 3.48 acres, and the right one is 1.15. So combined, you're talking, 4.5 acres. Yeah, 4.6. So it's a good piece of land, and the real intent here is whether or not we ever do anything with it. It's that what John said is that what happens is people try to buy it, from the town, try to take it on an auction or acquire it, and then they go, I can't really build on this, it's not really buildable, and then they don't pay taxes, and then it circles back, and all of a sudden, we have another problem. And it's like, these are not really all that buildable, and we already own them, we, the town. So the idea is move it into conservation, and it essentially is not now, it now is, wouldn't be buildable. So that's,
If we already own them, nobody can purchase them.
except people ask the town. They come and ping John Susan, say, hey, I'd like to buy those parcels. And he gets bothered, I guess.
How is that gonna stop this?
Because it'll be under conservation. Once it's under conservation, it wouldn't
Aren't
be.
people still gonna inquire about it?
He could, but his answer will be, it's under conservation, leave it alone.
Well, I think the point is there could be somebody else in his position down the road, and who knows what happens,
Okay.
is the logic. I mean,
Yeah. So the next one is the two on, if you click on the next, there we go. One very small and one very large, and almost 100% wetlands. There you go. There's a little development there, or 3 houses, but the Chelmsford Country Club, you can see the parking lot is right at the top on the top left, and the golf course is all around that, coming around.
Okay, yeah, I know what that is.
So that's Park Place, I think that's called, that little road right there.
Right.
Yep, so that's almost all wetland, so, and it's just, it's 4 acres, give or take.
There's a nice walking path down there.
Is there? Okay.
It goes over to Folly Brook. I think that might be Folly Brook in there.
Okay, all right, so that's it, and then the last one is what I would call the dividend parcel. After I have no idea how it ended up here, but it's this isolated 0.2 acre parcel right up against 495. This is behind Chelmsford Wood, behind the gas station on 110.
By the
It's
asphalt
called,
plant.
yeah, by the asphalt plant. What's the gas station? New World Gas Station, I think it's called.
Good price there.
And yeah, it is. I go out of the way to go over there. It's
Very good
a
price.
good place. And incidentally, if you can see there's the coolest parcels that we own, or the town owns, are right in that same general neighborhood as well. So this one's kind of like, just move it to conservation and be done with it. And I'm guessing for some reason when Chelmsford Arms Woods, you'd think it was part of that. I don't know, some kind of somebody did the math wrong, and suddenly this parcel came out of nowhere, and they went, hey, the survey isn't right, we have a little parcel here. But
Well, it's understandable how someone would just decide not to pay the taxes on that.
yeah, so this is almost a favor for the finance,
We need a motion for
maybe,
this?
maybe it's a GORE, G-O-R-E, and go Google that term. But that's these little triangular pieces of land that are more prevalent up north that were
okay. It's this-
surveyor mistakes.
Yeah, okay.
And they ended up with this weird piece of land, and it has a name, and you might see that on a map. I've seen that my whole life. Like, what the heck's a GORE? What is that? But it's a mistake.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't know if this is, but that looks like that.
It could be. All right, so what I'd like to do is just to have a motion and, get an approval to make the recommendation to Paul Cohen to make this a town meeting. It'll be at the town meeting article. And this is on top of our recommendation last time for the Warren Pole property to be transferred. So we would have Warren Pole plus these 5 parcels.
Can I make a comment? What strikes me is these fit one of those objectives in the plans, which is to put more land aside in conservation easement to protect watersheds, which means habitat and water quality, and that's a whole thing that big water districts outside of Chelmsford tend to do, is really bear down on putting aside lands that drain into, and that's what these all are. So it's in our mission, I would say.
Yeah, so I make a motion then that we, the commission, approve the 5 parcels be transferred to the care and custody of the commission. Those parcels being 108-405-2 Hunt Road, 108-405.3 Hunt Road, 91-378-14 Pine Road and Oak Street, and 117-449-1 and 1117-44 9-2, where both were near the Chelmsford Country Club.
Second.
Thank you. Motion from Chris, second from Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Well, motion's
Carl,
unanimous. Thank
where
you.
we are with Coolis, is that under our,
So the
Purview?
town manager has asked us, under his authority, to take over the CR, working on the CR, and also to be overseeing any activities on the site going forward for now, until we figure out what is gonna be done on that site.
so that's,
So there's some, I talked to John Ray today, he's the guy that's kind of the lead, taking care of that site, and they're cutting it. The DPW's done a great job doing some more cutting of some of the area. But as I said a few minutes ago, there is a vernal pool area that we wanna,
Right.
I said, you're getting a little close to the vernal pool, and we need to cut that, and he was like, no problem, and he said, let's put some marking around there so we can let that all grow
so
back
any
in.
other work other than cutting the grass and
Right now-
maintenance
Right now, nothing, yeah, that's it.
has to come before us?
Yeah, he would come before us, yeah. Yeah.
So if somebody was putting up, building new trails or a new bridge or whatever?
They come to us.
Okay.
Yep. I just want to add one thing. I was talking with Christine Clancy and a couple of weeks ago, and I had mentioned this to her quite a while back, that at Warren Pole and some of our other sites, we got an electric Ego lawnmower. They went out and bought one. I said, hey, we really could use this for cutting around the kiosk at Warren Pole and some of the other areas, because Steve's tractor does the big stuff, but he can't get in close around there. And I did it the other day. It takes me like 15 minutes. It's not a big deal. She said, it's done. And
So you keep that up at
so
the
we'll keep
Warren
that
Pole?
there, but it's easy to move it to any other site. It's all batteries, so we have a charger there. We don't have to worry about gas or anything like that. It works quite well. It's a nice little thing. And so I was pleased with that. And we also they got us 6 20-foot sections of the HDPE pipe. This is the 8-inch that we're gonna use for the right thing, and I gotta sit with David this week and write up the NOI for this, so that we can get that in front of us for approval. This is for the right reservation to build the walkway in the wet, muddy area that's been wet and muddy for 30 years or whatever.
And you're gonna use the Warren Pole
And we would
building
use the
for-
Warren Pole site for the staging, and the pipe's already sitting there ready to go. So it's actually coming together well. I think it's a nice thing. We'll show you what it looks like, but it's a nice design. David, anything else on your agent's report?
So, so I just will report that I received and approved the tree planting plan for Chelmsford Lumber. Recall that the commission required a number of trees to be planted.
Waste from the past.
Yes. There was some back and forth. This is what I eventually settled on with their landscape architect. 3 red maple, 2 river birch, 2 pin oak, 3 bald cypress. I would have preferred something native than over the bald cypress, but the landscape architect felt really strongly about it. But anyway, so the trees have been planted. Now the order on a related matter, the order of conditions allowed mowing of the wetlands and buffer zone only once a year after October 1st. They've been mowing they've continued to mow the buffer zone outside of that schedule. The engineer told me that they would be filing a request for an amended order of conditions to revise that schedule, but I have not received it yet. If this goes on and on and on without receiving that request, then I think the commission does need to hold them to the order of conditions.
Wasn't there a reason why we had it at a certain time of year?
It was because of wildlife. It was to promote and encourage biodiversity. but the engineer claims there was a misunderstanding about that. I don't think so. I think he made a certain commitment on behalf of his client without really talking to his client, because it's clear that the client wants to maintain that as lawn in between the warehouse parking area and the wetlands. So, maybe there's some sort of a compromise that can be, reached. But, they really should abide by the order of conditions, until they do file. So, at some point soon, I will ping him, are you going to be filing this request for an amended order of conditions?
Okay. Thanks.
That's that.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah, I know you've been busy with a lot of stuff. So we have meeting minutes. We have the May 7th off-cycle meeting, and then we have a May 14th meeting. So take a look at the May 7th meeting. So thank you, Vivian, for putting these together. Really appreciate it. Sorry? But I think you captured everything we talked about.
Some really good,
Yeah.
some good points here.
Yeah, and it's good to go back over it. It's, I'm like, okay, so we had some actions that we've done, and then some we still need to do, so it's good.
It's really good. It was kind of the challenges and some of the possible solutions that we're dealing with.
Yep.
and Good.
Chris, I have a question. Did you have a chance to read this?
Yes.
Is there anything from a legal perspective that is worded in a way that maybe doesn't accurately reflect what we talked about, but wording that maybe down the road, from a legal point of view, might, like if there's an appeal or something? I mean, I read through it and didn't see anything offhand, but I was just curious from a lawyer's point of view. Sounds like nothing jumped out at you.
Nothing jumped at me. I mean, I think
Okay.
kind of like this was really good, and we probably would be good to circle back on this document.
Right.
And kind of maybe there's some policy actions we want to take as follow-up.
Yep.
I mean, we've already kind of made some changes to address some of the challenges, but.
We might want to do this once or twice a year,
Yeah.
whatever the commissioners want to do, but
Yeah.
I found it pretty helpful because we're changing things a
I
little bit.
don't, but to your point, I don't remember that we had anything that was in our discussion that we were like bending towards pushing the legal envelope in any way.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
No.
He just asked the question.
Kind of more
It's a good-
procedures and kind of policies and, I mean, just,
Okay.
some best practices.
Yeah. A lot of good ideas.
A lot of
thrown
good
out.
ideas here.
Yep.
Valuable
Good discussion.
Yeah.
Let's not lose it. So I'll take a
Okay.
motion to approve the minutes of May 7th.
So moved.
So moved
Second.
by Chris, second by Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Same thing on May 14th. Take another minute and see if you see anything that jumps out. That was, speaking of Bruce Ringwald, he was there at this meeting.
That's understandable. That's not an obvious one.
October 270. That one, we closed the 270 hearing, okay.
One on 20 Pine, 1 Frederick Street. I think on the, which says, I requested that the water district be notified when the work happens. They also went a little further and said when any work happens with them, they notify the water district if it comes in the watershed area.
Okay. I
Do you-
will remind them of that.
I'm sorry?
I
You
will
want-
remind them of that.
Are you asking for the meeting notes to be amended, or
Yeah.
you know that, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you wanted to say any work?
In recharge, watershed, which is pretty much everything they do if it's gonna be.
Yep.
That's all.
All right, so any work in recharge or watershed areas should require,
Just notification to the water district,
Okay.
whether it be east, north, or center district.
Any district. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the meeting minutes for May 14th.
Move to approve.
Motion from Chris,
Second.
second from Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question, I'm sorry, kind of a personal question. Since I missed this meeting, do I need to do a Mullen for Hildreth, which was continued? I wasn't at the meeting, it was on the agenda, but it was continued.
Nothing was heard then?
I mean, continue without discussion.
Well, then you're good.
Yeah, right.
We're all set. Don't have to worry about it.
David, I have a Mullen for the meeting I missed on Hildreth.
Okay.
You want me to give that to you?
Or you can give it directly to the town clerk. That's up to you.
I already did it with them, so they took a copy, so.
Oh, okay.
Then you're all
Yeah.
set.
You good?
Yep.
So I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting. We'll see you in
to
August on the 13th. Motion from Chris, second from Bill.
Second.
All in favor, aye. Meeting
Aye.
adjourned. And before anybody leaves, can we do a
Picture?
picture?
Oh, picture.
Because I was gonna do that early, but